Okay, what our topic is today is scale drawing. What they gave me here is basically the scale or scale factor. What we're really looking at with this is really proportions. This is really the application of proportions. So if we look at the first one, it says, on a map, the distance from Akron to Cleveland measures 2 centimeters. What is the actual distance if the scale of the map shows that 1 centimeter is equal to 30 kilometers? So if LeBron James wanted to know how far it was from where he grew up to Cleveland where he played with the Cavaliers, he could be using a map. And because we can't make a map actual size, we shrink it down. So the first thing it does is it tells me on the map that it's 2 centimeters. Now we know it's not 2 centimeters from Akron to Cleveland. Now it says also here that the map says that it has a scale of 1 centimeter is 30 kilometers. So what it's really telling me in this first, I can write it right here, is that 1 centimeter is the same as 30 kilometers. Well, it also told me up here earlier with this one that Cleveland was actually 2 centimeters. So it brings that there and says, okay, what does that have to be? Well, really what I did is doubled this. I went 1 and that became 2. So I do this and it is 60 kilometers. So it's 60 kilometers from Akron to Cleveland. Now number 2 says an engineer makes a model of a bridge using a scale of 1 inch to 3 yards. If the actual length of the bridge is 50 yards, what is the length of the model? So here we're trying to shrink it down. We're trying to go from big to small. So again, here, I did get the scale. It's telling me that 1 inch is the same as 3 yards. So every 1 inch becomes 3 yards. But in this case, they told me, well, I don't know what the model is. I'm trying to make the model. So that was kind of that unknown. But it told me the actual bridge is 50 yards. So what is it in the model? So really, I'm cross-multiplying here. So that becomes 30x equal to that 50. Divide by 3. And when I do this, I get 16 and 2/3. And because I want that unit to match, of an inch. Now, problem 3 is probably the toughest. Part of it is because it does have that fraction in it. It says Julie is constructing a scale model of her room. It's a rectangular room, which is 10 1/4 inches by 8 inches. It says if each inch represents 2 feet of actual room, it says 2 parts. What is the scale factor? And what is the actual area of the room? Now, we're not going to spend a ton of time with scale factor due really to our limited amount of time. But what a scale factor is, it says, what is if it's an actual unit? And that means the same units. Well, here I have inches and feet. It's a lot easier to turn the feet into inches than the other way around. Well, 1 inch or 2 feet is the same as 24 inches. So my scale factor is really 1 to 24. They shrunk it down to 1/24 of its size. So now she has her room. Well, the first thing is it says, is I'm going to do this one first. But it still gives me here. There's my rule. 1 inch is the same as 2 feet. Well, here I have 8 inches. My question is, how many feet is that? If I cross multiply, that's just 1x equal to 24, so that's 24 feet. Oh, sorry, 2. I should make my mistake. That's the 2. And sorry, that should be 16, not 24. You need to always make sure that you write down the correct information. Now the next one is a lot trickier. Because here I'm saying, well, what is if I have 10¼ inches, and I want to find out how many feet that is. Well, it's still here 2 feet for 1 inch. If we go back to earlier parts of 7th grade math, this became a complex fraction. So I go 10 times 4 is 40, plus 1, 41 over 4. And eventually, if I go through all the math, I'll get x is equal to 20.5 feet by doing this cross multiplication. Because that becomes 1x equal to, when I cross multiply, that becomes 82 over 4, which is at 20.5. Now, that gave me the 2 actual measurements. It's telling me here that the room is 16 by 20.5. But I really want the area. The area is telling me I take the 16, which is the length, the 20.5, and I multiply them. And when I multiply those two, I'll move this up a little, I get, because you multiply these two together to get the area, the length times the width, I get 328 feet squared. And that's the area of the room. That was probably the most complex of the problems. That's really because of that fraction there. Now the last thing here I put down here is what is the key? So what is that key if it says 10 inches means 100 miles? So it's telling me I have a problem where it says, well, I have 10 inches on the map. And that 10 inches tells me it's 100 miles. Now I'm asking the scale, I want to say, how much is it just for 1 inch? If I had 1 inch, how many miles is that? That's my unknown. Well, if I go 10x equals 100, x equals 10. So it tells me 1 inch equals 10 miles. That's finding that key. Again, this all comes down really to proportions, and that key gives you that first proportion. I hope this helps as you work at completing your work on scale drawings.